Okay, everybody, we are at time, so I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to the last day of JordanCon. I hope everyone had an amazing time. Hopefully today is the best day yet, but I'm sure all amazing. So we are going to start this panel, which is about the finale of season 2 of the Wheel of Time show on Prime Video. And we're going to introduce the panelists first, just so you know. Some of us, you probably definitely already know who they are, but otherwise, we're just going to introduce ourselves very briefly, and then we are going to dive right into the episode. And if we have time at the end, we are open to questions, but I think since this is a bigger room, we'll probably try to reserve questions and comments until the end. So let's get started. I am Kritter XD. I'll be your moderator today. I am a content creator and occasional cosplayer. You might know me from TikTok or the Wheel and Chill Show on YouTube. And I also have a Lord of the Rings first time reader podcast called But Are There Dragons? Guy, I don't know if you really need an introduction, but you're welcome to introduce yourself.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Guy Roberts. I play UNO BL00dY on the TV show.
What a fine job you do, too.
I am Barbara Evers. I'm an award-winning epic fantasy author. I have a table right outside those doors, and if you've heard anybody talk about the woman who writes about telepathic giraffes, that would be me.
My name is Connor Keene. I'm just a longtime fan of the Wheel of Time series and really happy to be on this panel.
Hello, I'm Ellie Raine. I'm an award-winning fantasy author. Sorry if I'm out of breath. I had to run over here because I went to the wrong panel room.
Okay, awesome. Well, welcome to everyone. I think we're going to have a really good discussion. I think first, though, we're going to ask Guy a couple of questions that were possibly burning for some of you all. I know they were burning for me. So, Guy, as a fan of the books and the show, what was it like to actually be a hero of the Horn?
You know, in a way, acting is just being a kid on the playground and putting a towel around your neck and pretending you're Superman. So, to be a hero of the Horn and be on those ramparts in Morocco with the amazing stunt team, I just felt like I was a kid again, getting to play with swords and things like that with some really dear friends and people I love, and doing a TV show that I care quite a lot about. So it was the best time ever. We just had a blast in Morocco.
That's awesome. I know, yeah. I know when you died, I immediately said, no. No, he's coming back. Immediately. That's what I wanted, and I was cheering for it the whole season, so when it finally happened, I was literally just like, I think I did fist pump, literally, in my reaction video. So, did anybody else have any strong reactions to that?
Oh, absolutely. It's like, oh, there he is. Okay, good. So I was really surprised. I don't know why I didn't see it coming, but I didn't. And I like the fact that sometimes I don't see something coming, and I'm like, of course he's there. Duh.
It was a great surprise.
Huh?
It was a great surprise.
Yes.
So no one else had just completely manifested it like me. Like, no, this is happening. There's no way he's dead.
You did this.
I did. I feel great about it, honestly.
You were so powerful.
You're welcome, everybody. Okay, so the Wheel of Time can get pretty dark at times. Did you enjoy getting to play one of the primary sources of comedic relief, and is this type of role new for you?
UNO is deadly serious. There's no comedy in Shinar. Come on. No, I mean, it was just a total blast. And anytime you have a chance to call someone a goat kisser, I mean, every moment's been great. And the wonderful thing about the TV show as an actor is the writers so deeply understand the characters from the books, from the inside. Whenever you read a script, you know, the amazing thing for me is I feel like I'm reading Nynaeve and Paren and my headcanon. And the headcanon, of course, is going to be different for everyone. That's the joy of a great work of art like The Wheel of Time or a Shakespeare play. But the excitement I have when I'm reading a new script or when I'm seeing a scene that maybe I'm not a part of for the first time was exactly like the excitement I had from 1990 when you see the book on the bookshelf and you don't know what's going to happen. And the great thing about this turning of the wheel is I get to live in that world and be a part of that world with people I love because they are real characters to me. I think of them as real people. And I think that's a testament to Robert Jordan's writing. And to be able to experience new adventures and some familiar things as well, it's so exciting.
And so you have like 1,000 times more experience at this than me, but whenever I got to be on the Two Rivers set, it was kind of the same feeling where I was just like, guys, we're here, you know, it was just like the coolest thing ever. So you are living the dream, sir. Okay, so what do you think makes the story of the Wheel of Time special? That can be the book version, the show version, or you're more than welcome to answer for both if they're different.
Okay, I mean, all my opinions are just my opinions. And I think there is, in the books and the TV show, a generosity of spirit and a hopeful vision of the future that doesn't come easily, always. There is some cost to it. But it's that vision of a better tomorrow. And I think that's something that we all respond to. For the books, you know, essentially, whether it's the Iliad or any other great fantasy story, they're concerned with heroes' journeys. And all of us are trying to be the hero of our own lives in some way. And so, for example, in the books, when you have such an amazing sequence like Egwene in the Tower, where it sort of maps out how do you become the hero, not just of your story, but of other people's story. It's something incredibly inspiring. And I think that's why we keep coming back to entertainment, like the Wheel of Time TV show, and these books, whether it's, again, the Iliad or something from classic literature, because we are intensely interested in people. And what Robert Jordan did so well, which all great writers like Shakespeare and other people do, is he created real human beings. And human beings are by our nature contradictory, ambiguous, and inconsistent. And so whenever in the books you encounter something that feels a bit ambiguous or inconsistent or contradictory, that's what makes us human. And that's what I love about this series.
That's awesome. Very well said. Me too. I mean, that'd be great. Let's give a round of applause. Okay, so you're so right in the fact that the Wheel of Time is not just about like one person. That's a big theme.
It's about them all.
It's about them all. And this episode, I think the finale was a perfect example of that in this season. So there were several plots that we followed throughout the entire season that finally all came together in Falm in this episode. So I'm just going to pluck one out of a hat, and that's going to be Matt. We start with him with his dagger. He's got a dilemma. He makes a spear. It's an interesting, I know for book readers, we were very invested in what was happening with that spear. So Ellie or Connor, do either of you have an opinion about Matt's plot this episode?
I had not gotten far enough in the books that I knew that was going to happen, so that blew my mind. It was so cool, and it was such a cool moment. Like, he came into himself in that exact moment, and it was so powerful. I was freaking out.
So where are you in the books?
I'm not far. I just started book 2, so give me some time.
No, it's great. It's really good to have I like to have a show-only perspective, and at this point, you know, since we're kind of past where you are, it's perfect. So when you found out that Matt was one of the heroes, how did that make you feel?
So excited. Oh my gosh, that scene was like squee-worthy.
Okay, I love that. So
yeah, like everything was set up perfectly, man. Like the framing, first of all, perfect. The way that all the heroes of the horns were arranged, was very picturesque. Like, they did a great job choreographing that.
Mhm.
Like, and the graphics for making them all like this ethereal, little, like, I don't even know how to describe it. You could tell that these people mattered and they were one unit. It
Mhm.
was so cool.
So throughout a lot of these shows so far, Matt has been a bit of a loser. Just to put it mildly.
Just the man Matt.
No, I mean, he's my second favorite character in the whole series. So like, I love my boy Matt. But so far in the show, it was like, Matt, what are you doing? Matt, come on, Matt, do your thing. Finally, though, he actually did some stuff. Were you expecting that positive turnaround for him, or did you expect him to go further to the dark?
More like I was hoping he was going to turn back around. Because, like, his introduction, you know, with his family and everything, like, the way that his character was set up,
Mm-hmm.
he is a good person.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted him to come back to that. So I was so happy that he got there.
Yeah.
You know, and he struggled. And, like, it was very relatable,
Mhm.
his struggle toward that. But I really liked how crafty it was, how he got around it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what turned it around for me. Like, okay, he's my favorite right now.
Who's your
He's
favorite?
not my favorite.
Ooh, I think crafty is the perfect word for Matt, honestly, just generally.
Besides UNO, you mean?
I mean, of course. No one can take your place from me.
I love that. Okay, so let's go to, unless, Paren, you had anything about Matt you'd like to say?
No, she really covered all of it. I will say one of my favorite parts of that scene was, what was his name? How am I not remembering his name?
Uno.
Paren Fane. Paren Fane's face when he realized he was in the form of a spear was priceless. That was really good to see.
Yeah, every time he shows up, he's kind of just like there for a second. You're like, what's this guy doing? He is a sneaky dude, you know, and I love whenever he gets his comeuppance.
He's so smug, too.
Yeah, he really is. So there's one character I think that a lot of people have had, like, especially show-only people, have really attached themselves to Nynaeve for a lot of reasons. And a lot of people attach themselves to her in the books as well. But the finale for some of them was not what they expected for her, right? Because in the show so far, Nynaeve has been a save-the-day kind of girly. So, Connor, did you have any thoughts about Nynaeve's plot in this episode? Was it disappointing? Were you glad that she maybe kind of took a step back?
So, I think in general, because I do love Nynaeve in the books and the show, but I think in general it's good that her kind of like final like save the day, you know, storyline is a bit further on, just because it really is a massive build-up. She is the strongest female channeler in the world, effectively. So I think it's really important to kind of save that massive, you know, save the day. Nynaeve's like finally there with the channeling until a later plot point. You know, give some of the other newer characters like Elaine some time to shine, since, you know, we need to find connection with them.
Sure. And she did have some of those in season 1 too, where it was like, everybody's dead, just kidding, Nynaeve's here. So she's had some good stuff so far, I think. So let's talk about Paren. Barbara, I know you had some feelings about Hopper.
Yes. No! Hopper. It was so heartbreaking. You knew it was coming, but it was so heartbreaking to watch.
You don't kill the doggy!
Yeah, and I write animals, so I'm always, my heart goes to the animals every single time. But just to watch how it happened and how Hopper ignored Paren, and Paren's, order, you stay out here, it's not safe enough for you. And Hopper just sacrifices himself, and to see him just kind of, to be torn up like that, it was just, even when I rewatched it, I cried.
Yeah.
I was like, no, and they, I hate to say they shot the scene well.
She's crying now.
Sorry, we should have warned you.
I'm sorry. But they shot the way they shot the scene is so tense and so it just grabs you in the gut. And as much as I don't like to see those kinds of scenes, it is part of what the Wheel of Time's going to have. So you're going to see it as, and just watch him protect Paren and be struck down in such a violent way.
Yeah.
It was just so hard because you know we love our animals and we love our dogs and our cats and our whatever and our giraffes and you know, whatever we we love those, and it's so hard to watch any of them be killed. It just rips your heart out, and in a way he kind of had his guts ripped out, I guess, but not be gross, but it was just. It goes down as one of those scenes I don't want to watch again, but I probably will.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's some amazing setup there that just, it grabs you and holds you.
Yeah. Just so everyone knows, just a little PSA. There's actually a website, I believe it's called Does the Dog Die? And I actually haven't checked to see if the Wheel of Time has made, it's on there now. Kathy's is saying that it's on there, so if you ever want to know before you watch a movie, you can look it up. We're going to save questions until later. So, Guy, we talked a little bit yesterday about the characters that you can relate to and whatnot, and you mentioned that lately Paren has kind of been more and more your boy. Are you relating to him at all in the show so far?
Well, when you have the privilege of acting with someone like Marcus, you can't help it. And Marcus really is like Paren in so many ways. When you meet Marcus, he's enormous. I mean, he's like 12 feet tall, and he's really big and strong, and he does the most Paren thing. He will make himself small to make other people feel comfortable. And so my brain is just exploding whenever I'm around Marcus, and it's so much fun to be able to play with him and share that. And one of my favorite moments in 208 is when I give him the shield that Paren will use to protect. And it's little moments like that, even if they're a bit different than something in the book, it has the spirit of the book, it understands the spirit of the characters, and that's where Rafe and the writers are so smart. And so Marcus is in my heart, and Paren as well.
And you got to spend a lot of time with him.
Yeah, that was what was wonderful. We spent so much time training and riding horses and preparing for the hunt and getting ready for battles, whether it's Satuan's Mill or whatever. And so we really got a lot of time to become kind of a gang, And then Gary, Elias and I were sort of battling for Paren's affections. And, I had this whole thing in my mind that we were going to meet in the dream world, and Uno was going to say, no, be a man, and Gary was going to be a wolf, and so there's all kinds of crazy things actors do in their heads.
And that can still happen.
Maybe it does.
Heard it here first. So speaking of the Shinarans, we also had Ingtar, who had a bit of a different plot in the book than he did in the show. That I've heard there's at least one deleted scene where it's more book-like, and you might not be able to talk about that. I understand. But as far as Loyal and Ingtar being captured by the Shan and trying to figure out how to get the horn and ultimately getting it from some lady in Karian or whatever, how did you feel about the way they finessed that plot with Loyal and Ingtar?
I thought it's terrific. There's so many things you have to juggle and balance when you have 57 minutes or whatever it is. I think the finale is a bit longer. And the artistry and the skill with which they manage that. It's very easy, no matter what it is, in my opinion. Criticism is the easiest thing. To be negative about something is easy, but to go a little deeper and to think about reasons why. And the writing team, led by Rafe, they're making choices now that at times, for hardcore book fans, they may not understand, but everything is so deeply considered with Sarah Nakamura and everyone. These things are gonna pay off later. And they're setting the stage. They can't write a show just for book fans. because we all love the Wheel of Time, and we want new people to go to the books and read the Wheel of Time, and so you've got to create something for someone that's never read the books. And it's this amazing balancing act that I think they do so well. And I love everything that happened. Greg is a terrific actor. He's really fantastic as Ingtar. And if you've read the books, you can see that story.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I do think also Loyal, having been captured in the show, made for a lovely, it wasn't in this episode, but the tree singing scene. So I think, they definitely weave things in, maybe in different places, in different settings or whatever, but they do things for book fans, even if it's not the exact plot every single time.
Absolutely.
Which is great. Does anybody else have a thought about Ingtar or Loyal in episode 8?
Not without giving book spoilers, no.
Okay, that's fair. Did you see Tree singing? You had read about it because it was, sorry, I'm talking to Ellie. Because you had read about it because it was in book 1, right? So were you pumped to see it?
I was like, oh, so that's what it sounded like.
Yeah, it was beautiful the way they did the audio mixing on that, I think.
I really like imagining whenever they have songs or things in there like that. I like imagining what it sounds like in my head.
Mm-hmm.
But I really like whenever it's actually tangibly there to hear the difference.
Right.
It's fun.
For sure. Okay, so I've kind of been holding off on the two biggies, I think, as far as plots. We've got Rand and Egwene, and then there's Moraine and Lan, who are out on the beach, but reconciling and having a very meaningful time, and then a super fun fight that involved catching arrows. So was anybody else heavily invested in the Moraine and Lan reunification plot? Ellie, you want to go for it?
I'm not sure what else to say other than I was hoping for this, I was waiting for it.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna make the bond again, right? That is gonna happen, right? We're not just gonna leave it like this.
Right. So it was it was a huge relief, I think, for a lot of people that it finally happened.
That's the best way to describe it.
Yeah. Barbara, did you have thought about that plot?
Yeah, I've been waiting and waiting and waiting for the bond to be reformed and for them to end up even back in the same place together. And so to have Lanfear toss them outside and fall away.
I think the word is yeet.
And for them to finally realize they've got to reconnect. And Lan knew, and Moraine just was being Moraine. Let's face it, she was being Moraine. And just to watch how that occurred, it really, how do you represent on film how strong that bond is? And I think they did a really good job of it, because you're sitting there watching it, and it looked like lovers, but they're really, well, maybe, who knows, but it looked like a very, an extremely intimate period with them, and for them to go, and she goes this way, and he fights off an entire, army coming down to the beach, and he's sitting there going, that's a lot of people, Lan. Okay, I know you're good. Oh, look. But just to watch her being able to kind of turn and focus on Rand now, because I think not having that connection really kept her from doing what she needed to be doing, and to be focused on Rand. And Lan became full again. Yeah. Because he was partial up until that point. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
I'll jump in. I had heard some things about the filming of that, and I was really looking forward as a fan of the show and the books to see it. And what I love about that sequence, which it's a callback to the first episode, you get to see them in action together, seamlessly. You really see what that bond between an Aes Sedai and a warder can be like, and what makes Moraine and Lan special as a team. And so when they're working together like that, I just feel like it's those sort of moments when you're reading the books and you're trying to imagine what it would look like, and then you get to see it, and I thought it was so well done, shot so incredibly, the acting was phenomenal, choreography was just fantastic. And yeah, I love that sequence.
They really are the dream team. And then ultimately, well, Maureen ended up taking care of the Soldat and Demani, which was amazing. But then eventually, she was the one who cast the weave that did the Dragon of Fire. Connor, did you find any significance in Maureen being the one that did that?
I think there is a lot of significance because the fact that Moraine's kind of what Moraine's trying to be is the guiding light, the thing that like precedes the dragon to make sure that success is set up for the dragon. Because the dragon is the only hope. Moraine recognizes that, and she also recognizes that she's one of the only people, at least early on, that's going to try and facilitate Rand being able to actually save everything. So I think it was really beautiful. But I also think it was interesting that Lanfear told her to do it, and that she still did it. I really thought her stubbornness was going to get the better of her, and she wasn't going to do it out of like spite.
You're
or
not the
something.
boss of me.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, but it was a really beautiful scene. It was a really beautiful scene.
Yeah, and it speaks a lot about how prophecy often, like, it seemed like, at least from her expression at the time, that it dawned on her what she had to do at this point, it seemed like she was coming to the conclusion that, oh, prophecy often has to be us. We have to kind of make it happen. So prophecy doesn't just happen on its own, it's up to us to make it. So I think that to me was a really powerful moment too.
Yes. I feel like among the diehard book readers, one of the big moments of controversy from that episode was Moraine going after the ships. And Ellie, I'm curious, as somebody who's not as familiar with the books, were you worried about the Three Oats at that point?
No.
You know, same, honestly. And then
I
after
just
the
want
fact,
the
I was
shit
like,
gone. So yep, get rid of them.
Okay. How does anybody have a theory about how that got around the Three Oats?
Isn't there like a loophole like protection and I mean kind of
The last defense of your life and your warder's life, I believe.
And of a fellow sister.
And of a fellow sister, yes, thank you.
Okay, and so, but does she know Egwene's up there? Egwene's not.
But aren't there fellow sisters who've been captured by the shark?
That was what I said.
There we go. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now Grace just went,
Solved.
No problem at all. Honestly, the first time somebody brought it up, I was like, that was fine. I didn't worry about it. I wasn't worried about that at all. Like, that's easily one of the exceptions. Am I going to name it? No, not at all.
and so you give me the
Okay, so speaking of the top of the tower, let's talk about my girl, Egwene. You know how much I love her. Some of you know how much I love her. So we start out with some extreme disrespect from Rena before they head up to the tower. Don't touch a girl's hair, okay? And then the ultimate showdown at the top of the tower. And Barbara, I know you had some feelings about that.
Egwene is my favorite character, bar none. She's my favorite character. She always has been my favorite character from the first time I read the books. And so I love how they changed, how she got out of the what's the word?
I know.
Yeah, the kennels, yeah. And how she managed to save herself. Because Egwene is such, I'm not going to go completely there, but Egwene's got quite an arc. Quite an arc. I think this works better to feed into that arc. And it makes her that stronger person. And it shows that determination that Loyal points out she has, and we all know she has it, but we haven't had that opportunity in the show to see it as strongly. So to see her captured, to see her collared, to see her fight back and fight back and fight back and try not to see water as a weapon, and to finally be able to fight off Rena, who, let's face it, she, they look like cockroaches, don't they, with that hair? But Rena thinks she is such a caring, she thinks she's caring and she thinks she's the best person for anybody who gets collared, and she's not, and it shows the clash of those cultures. I will say I was on a panel at a different con, and we were talking about the full season of season 2, and one of the panelists has not read the books yet. She's just watched the show, and she was quite offended that Egwene became a slave, basically. And I'd never thought about that before, and I was really, caught off guard by that comment because, and let's face it, I'd read Egwene, I had my image of who Egwene is. This is who they cast as Egwene, so I know the story. And we kept saying to her, when you read the story, it's going to make a whole lot more sense. When you read the story, it's going to make a whole lot more sense. And we said, but isn't it more powerful that she breaks those bonds herself? And she is kick-ass. And I know Nynaeve is stronger. I like Nynaeve better in this TV show because she's at least a woman as opposed to a kid. But Egwene's my woman. She is everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you can tell her I love the way she's portrayed.
Everyone does. Maddie's great.
Yeah, I think she, just throughout the entire season, absolutely dominated. I also love Egwene.
Yes.
So when that ended up happening, it was another, whoop, absolute extreme excitement. You don't need to be rescued by anybody kind of a moment. The mechanics obviously are something that I thought about briefly, oh my gosh, how could this, she just literally overcoming all of this pain? Is she not seeing the collar as a weapon? All of a sudden, obviously, sometimes I think about magic systems too much, and sometimes I just don't worry about it. And I think in this case, I was willing to suspend whatever disbelief I had about whether the Adam could be considered a weapon and all of that, just because of the way it all came together. It made it so worth it. And I feel like, as you said, for anyone who's not a book reader, they are not worried about that at all. And it made for such an amazing finale for her. And I feel like her plot was the A plot of the season for me. And so it was just an amazing finale, just generally. And then once she breaks out and she takes, having been pushed, and uses it to her advantage by temporarily putting up a shield that temporarily stops Ishy from getting to Rand, until Paren could come with the shield to help her. It was all just very much, it came together so well. It was such a beautiful finale, and she was such a huge part of it, so I love to see it. I love to see an Egwene moment.
Plus, it's so awesome that Rand shows up to save her. Oops.
Well, I agree. If he would have ended up saving her, it would have been well, that's not even how, in the books at least the girlies saved her, and there's that to go. She doesn't need a man,
Yeah,
right?
I
So
acknowledged it too. I guess he didn't really need it.
right. Yeah. We love Rand. We haven't talked about him yet. But anybody else have any thoughts about Egwene in this episode before we go to Rand?
I think the actor for Egwene did a really good job at the end, right at the end after everything was done, with kind of shell shock at what had just happened. It's something kind of off tangent. The guy who shot that first trebuchet shot had hadn't shot it before, perfectly hit the top of that tower. He's the best shot in the world, I guess.
Well, Maureen thinks that Egwene and Nynaeve are both severe. So part of me's that's just severe. That basically set her free. The pattern's here you go, Egwene. We're gonna give you this little favor, and then you've got to do the rest.
Yeah.
That's how I took it. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Well, we have Rand now. Rand had quite the season, right? He started by himself. Well, not by himself. Under the influence of a certain Forsaken. And, you know, he continued under the influence of that Forsaken pretty much the rest of the season, and Moraine, and then he ended up in Fall. And I know a lot of people were looking forward to and curious about how they were going to do Rand's part of the finale of The Great Hunt, because, you know, being projected into the sky is a complicated thing to have happen to you. So we started with his infiltration of the Shan fortress, right? And he encounters Lord Turok. Any Indiana Jones fans here? Was anyone looking for a sword fight, or are we?
I was expecting one,
You were
but I'm
expecting
glad I
one.
didn't get it.
Glad you didn't. Okay, I feel like that's where I was at. Like, I was expecting the sword fight, and the whole time I was like, I don't know if Rand's gonna be like good enough for this. We haven't seen him training. I need a land.
That was squashed quite quickly.
Yeah, right. And now it's like, we'll maybe get Rand sword fighting in future seasons. Now we're getting Rand bulleting them. More realistic. I don't know. So yeah, any thoughts about Turok and Rand and their encounter, other than how hilarious it was?
I think the one survivor did a better option than dying the way everyone else died. So like, oh, okay, I see what you can do. This is probably better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the way they've kind of leveled up Rand in a way throughout like the season is pretty good, because he's nowhere near as strong as like Moraine or anything, because they have too much experience. But he also doesn't have the limitation of having to be in danger. So it's really kind of interesting to see him like get more and more comfortable with the power, but he still has to sneak around the fortress. He knows he can't just wipe out the fortress by himself. Well, not yet.
Yeah.
So I think there's a really good way of portraying his strength in that moment.
For sure. And I thought it was interesting that he did have enough control to spare the servants, and that showed, I think, his like kind side. But then he didn't account for the fact that the Shan are a whole different breed, and the servant took himself out.
Completely insane.
Yeah. Well, I didn't want to say that, but pretty much. So Rand and Shamel are, two sides of the same coin. So they ended up finally confronting each other. And we also got, I guess, the Age of Legends cold open in this episode as well, where it was Luz Theron and Shamel. So how do we like Shamel in the show? Barbara, do you have any thoughts about Shamel and how he is, just generally?
I never really got a strong feeling of Shamel in the books.
Mm-hmm.
And I get a much stronger feeling of who he is in the show. I'm not sure why that is, to be honest with you. I think I shared last year on whichever panel I was on, I am not a detail-oriented person, so I tend to do big picture. So I had a big picture of who Shamel was, who Lampier was, and all these other people who were, sealed away. And he was creepy, but then he was also kind of human, and that was interesting because to me, I never saw them as human when I read the books.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have this person who I think portrays him really, really well, and you realize this is a person, and they were buds at one point, and it's picture's worth 1,000 words. You get it. You get your own image, you get your own visualization, and then you get the reality of what it's being portrayed in the show. And I kind of like it. If that makes sense.
How can you not? It's fair.
I know. How can you not?
So yeah. I mean, I like him because it's great to see someone play, an antagonistic character, and it was just. I don't know what else to say.
Guys, do you have any thoughts for the Forsaken?
I think the Forsaken in the show are off the fucking hook. They are so amazing, and I'll never forget my first day in Morocco when we're filming 208. I went down to breakfast at the hotel, and Ferris is at this giant round table, and he's so silky smooth. And I saw him out of the corner of my eye, I turn around and look, and he just says, "Hello, guy." And I was like, "Whoa!" The energy, you know? No, I think he's fantastic in the show, and yeah, obviously.
No, absolutely, and I think I'll just piggyback off that and say Natasha similarly. Just in, like, I could not have chosen. It's a really hard thing to take a book and hear, you know, most beautiful woman you've ever seen in your life, right? How do you picture that? But then whenever I saw her on the screen, I was like, oh, it's Lanfear! Like, we found her, and my God, did she embody Lanfear so well. I think everyone fell in love with her, like whether they like bad guys or not.
And you know what the writers did and what Natasha did so well is you believe Lanfear loves the dragon.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't believe that, it falls apart. And so we're so lucky that we have an incredible actress like Natasha, and that the writers really deeply understand that whole thing. And yeah, it's all of her scenes are just phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. Including the very last one, which we
Boy.
have
Oh my God.
somebody who could intimidate Lanfear, at least if they get the drop on her. We found Moghedian finally. Just a sign of things to come, I assume. Did anybody else have a particular love for that final scene?
It was cool.
It was cool. Yeah, it was cool.
It was kind of a good display of how, like, the other Forsaken, there was a reason that Shamel and Lanfear didn't release them. Well, Shamel did, but Lanfear really didn't want them released.
Yeah.
Not only so she could, you know, fully manage the dragon herself, because the other, it was a good introduction about the fact that the other Forsaken, they weren't, like, not released because they were weak or anything. They are terrifying.
Yes.
And that was a really good display, because someone we haven't seen beaten yet, well, except by a surprise sword by Marn. And we haven't seen her beaten yet, and to be just immediately crushed like a fly, because just by a simple drop on her, he was really like terrifying in a way. Like the main cast has to see this, like the main cast has to fight this. It was scary.
Yeah, for sure. Barbara, did you want to say something?
Well, although we see that Lanfear loves Rand, we know what a terrifying person she is from the show and from the books, and we know what a terrifying person Ishmael is. And we think they are the, especially if you've never read the books, they're the penultimate of evil.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, in this short little scene, this little tiny woman tells us, in no uncertain terms, they're nothing. They are nothing compared to me and everybody else. And I've been waiting to see how they were going to portray the rest of the Forsaken, and I just sat there and I was like, I can watch that again.
I think about the Forsaken that I really enjoy is in the book sometimes they feel like squabbling siblings that aren't a real threat, sometimes. And in the show just immediately it's like you've got this weird relationship between Ishi and Lanfear that's like, are they, you know, like, yes. and so they have this weird affection for each other, and like both of their odd relationships with Luz Theron, you know, back in the day, and now we've got this new one, Moghedian, and Lanfear and Ishi were kind of working together, except for, you know, obviously not ultimately, and now we've got this one that's going to be working completely on her own, and I just think that the threat level is elevated in the show from the Forsaken out of the gate, which I think is awesome, because I love the squabbling bad guys, the bad guys who are, you know, chaotic bad, rather than trying to work together. So I'm really looking forward to seeing where that goes next season. Okay, well, we got away from Rand a little bit, which I apologize. We're getting in our last little section.
We need to talk about Lanfear anyway. It's fun.
Yeah, we did need to talk about Lanfear and Moghedian, and you know, so let's finish it out with Rand, and then we'll take some questions at the very, very end. So, he gets to the top of the tower. He gets shielded once again. He's talking to Ishi. Ishi is this nihilist that, you know, is just trying to end it all, basically. Does anyone have any thoughts about that final confrontation?
I mean, it was really well done. Like a lot of the main cast had a lot of, you know, time to shine, as we've already discussed with Wayne, Paren. I think the way they handled Rand getting that injury was really well done, and it made a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
But it was also really tragic to watch, because you knew the second he held up that spear, you knew what was about to happen.
Dude, my man Matt was so excited. He was like, yeah, I got this.
I'm the hero. Let's go.
It was also really interesting that he didn't kill Shamel with the one power. Like he heated up the sword. I really liked how they gave him his first Aaron mark on his hand. That was really, really creative. But he didn't kill him with the one power, which I was expecting. They kind of flipped Turok and Shamel, like the scenes. It wasn't a sword fight, but he killed him with a sword and then melted that sword down into him. It was fascinating.
It really was. It really was. Did you expect Ishy to go down as I don't want to say quietly, because it was like he was fighting until the very, very end, and then it felt to me that he just kind of gave up and wanted to go. Barbara? You just
It was a little anticlimactic for me with him. Okay, good. I see a head nod. You're with me on that. Oh, I see a few more. Mainly because I know what it was in the books and how the battle is so much bigger in the books. And so seeing this happen with all of them there and all of them part of it and seeing Matt's part in it and Egwene's part of it in it was interesting. But then Rand, it was almost like he was, it felt like an afterthought. I don't know. It was weird for me. I don't have a problem with the scene. I just didn't feel it was as impactful a scene as I was expecting, having read the books. Like I said, I'm sure they have a reason why they did it the way they did it. And that's one of the things that I've learned over the years. And but I was expecting more from Rand and more from Ishy.
Yeah, I think there was, Ishy was definitely going kind of bonkers on Egwene and Paren there for a while, and so he was like putting up a fight, but, so this is like kind of an aside, but I'm in a D&D campaign, and recently we had a character die, and the character had a choice of whether he was going to come back or not, and he decided not to come back, and it was very in line with the way that his character was built, right? And so for me, even though the Ishy thing happened before that happened, it felt very in line with how Ishy is and his philosophy. And in that episode and episodes leading up to that, if I'm remembering right, he talked about like not wanting to have to do this all again, and like wanting to have to repeat the process. And I think finally, once all of the main characters got up to the top of the tower, and he just decided like, this isn't gonna be the one. Basically, like I'm gonna press the reset button because this isn't gonna work out. So I think it was very, whether it was like the Avengers Endgame battle that everybody was hoping for, I do think it aligned with his character really well, personally. Guy, how did you feel about the finale?
I loved it, and the thing we haven't talked about is when Rand looks up and sees Ellie Raine.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Hearts go out for Zara.
That is such a good way to end before we start taking questions. Yeah, foreshadowing perhaps? Who knows? I think there were some deliberate lighting choices. I think the fact that she introduced herself as Elaine instead of the daughter of Aragorn, which is how she introduced herself to most other people. All of those things were very, very interesting. And Egwene was right there. Wow, who? So before we start taking questions, does anyone have any final comments about the finale as a whole? Anything we missed that you wanted to hit?
Maybe just a quick side on the White Cloak's son.
Yeah.
Kind of that setup for the rest, like I don't know if it's going to be set up for the next season or season after that, but I feel like he's actually did a really good job portraying like the shock and like the anger and the becoming revenge. So I can't spoil too much without spoiling the books, but I think he's going to replace a different faction later on, and I'm really excited to see that.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of significance in the fact that instead of calling him Paren, he kept calling him Two Rivers.
Well, you know, he's such a nice guy in life, the actor. But anytime you get a chance to smack a white cloak with a shield, it's a good day at work.
He's not wearing his white cloak costume
Yeah,
today, he's
not
wearing his
today.
MAC costume.
Okay, so we have about 10 minutes left, and we'll start with you because I think you maybe raised your hand earlier.
I didn't, but thank you.
Oh, okay, no, I'm sorry.
Speaking of white cloaks and the Three Oats and how we get around them, we haven't gotten a lot of Egwene or the other Wonder Girls trying to live the Three Oats as they do in the books. But there's the moment in when she's on the tower and she decides to kill some white cloaks. And I'm trying to remember, what is it that they are saying that convinces her, yeah, fireball?
I'll repeat the question. Basically, the Wonder Girls eventually try to live up to the Three Oats, even if they aren't Isys Death yet. And Egwene kind of snaps or makes a snap judgment on the top of the tower and decides to start gunning for some white cloaks, basically, or Sean Shannon white cloaks, depending on your perspective. So for me, I thought, she wasn't necessarily paying attention to who was being fired upon. But then when she noticed, she has that, PTSD, presumably from the first time that she had been captured and tortured, or at least watched Paren be tortured by the White Cloaks. And so, yeah, I didn't really expect anything else, especially because I think early on in the books, the Wonder Girls didn't really bother as much and didn't fully understand the importance of the Three Oats. And I know Egwene has a conversation with someone in a future book that I'm not going to explain about why the Three Oats are so important for the Isys Death half. So I think we just haven't had that moment yet with the Wonder Girls for them to be like, oh, we really do need to start doing this because it's important. Anybody else have any thoughts on that before we take another one?
Yeah, that was basically what I thought happened. Like I thought she specifically recognized one of the white cloaks, and it was, full on trauma response rage mode. That's how I interpreted it.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if that's accurate though.
that's how I took it too. Mr. Whitecloak?
So why do you think Nynaeve in the episode could neither heal as an Isys Death or as a wisdom the arrow injury? What were they setting up? Because it was clearly outside her normal. She could fix anything.
So the question was, why couldn't Nynaeve heal at all? Like whether it be normally or with the one power?
What were they're going for something. What were they going for?
Mm-hmm.
I thought they were going for something similar to, I'm trying to figure out how to describe this. So if you have, I can only relate to ADHD and or autism because I relate to that.
Sure.
Especially with ADHD and executive function or special interests with autism, the way that she described it to me when she said, I can't do it that way, it's either there or it isn't, that really let that hit me real hard because that's kind of the way it is for me with my special interests / creative projects. I either want to do it or I can do it, or I don't want to do it and I just cannot. If I don't have an interest in it, or if it's not hitting today, if something is happening that is just not working and I can't explain why, it's just not there and I cannot force it out. So I kind of thought it was something similar to that, because she's so advanced that it's either there or it isn't. So that's kind of the way I interpreted it, but I'm not entirely sure.
Barbara, do you have that?
Yeah. So far, what we know about Nynaeve at this point in the series is she's got to be super, super, super angry. And I think she was super, super, super scared.
Yes. That was exactly how I took it.
So she couldn't bring it. And I kept thinking, are they going to let her get angry that she can't do it? Or are they going to just push through that? And so that it gave them an opportunity to show us how tough Elaine could be instead.
Mm-hmm.
and that Naive has to understand she is not necessarily still the boss of all of these, kids. Because that's what, that's how she sees herself in the books, and that's how she sees herself so far in the show. And that's a long curve for her to follow eventually. But yeah, plus she's probably got a little bit of PTSD from the orc attack way back when. Granted, she came out shining really well with that one, but still she went through it. Mm-hmm. And this is, probably 100 times worse.
Mm-hmm. Well, and her channeling caused Rhyma to get captured, which is another reason why, she might have an issue getting the channeling to actually work. I know you've been waiting.
For my question, I was going to ask a question because I think it encapsulates a lot of the previous stuff. Is like, going forward, seeing what we saw in season 8, how much do we think that the rule of cool or what's good for television is kind of going to overwrite the rules of the world as Robert Jordan knows? Like, for a lot of the 90s block or Marine attacking the ship, like all these rules, like obviously the show seems to care about them, right? But like at the same time, television has to television, right? Like Elaine needs moments. Naive might just be out of action because she needs to for the purpose of the plot more so than like we can attribute behind the scenes reasons for it, but like from the end of the day going forward, how much do we think it's just going to be like what's good television rather than what's fitting?
Yeah, listen, I'm not the one to really talk about this, but since I am connected to the show, I don't think anyone who loves the books really understands that they want a page-for-page adaptation, because if that had happened, it would have never advanced beyond a pilot. There would never be a second season. You have to make a TV show that works. You have to make a film that works. And the books are the books, and they're going to exist always that way. And the realities are, you wouldn't like it because it wouldn't be a good TV show. What makes a great book does not make a great TV show.
I completely agree. Yeah. I think, but having talked to Sarah about it too, I know that her and Rafe are heavily invested in staying true to the soul of the books. And so I think my prediction is that we will continue to stay true to the soul of the characters and the books, and things just might get tweaked, right? And things are going to get tweaked, just to make it more watchable. For example, on the Wheel and Chill show, we would always have people after every episode who hadn't read the books, and those people, like all the things that I hear on Twitter or my TikTok comments that people are hanging up on, like, oh my gosh, there's supposed to be a cap whenever they link. You can't burn out when you link, and the people that haven't read the books are like, that was wild, right? and that's it. And so I think there are things that we can just as book readers let go, because they're truly not important to the soul of the books. They're just a mechanic or something that happened to a particular character, and just accept that sometimes that's going to happen to a different character because it makes sense for that character's plot.
Can I ask the audience a question?
Sure, yeah.
So, for those of you who were book readers and were really, really excited when the first season came out, we all kind of hit wait a minute, that's not... and we struggled with it for a little while, but by the time the second season came, how many were like, this is really good, and I'm not going to look for it to match up all the way? How many of you were that way? Yeah, see, because it works, right?
That's the attitude. Well
it
done.
Works.
Yeah. Okay, so we probably have one more question, and
somebody over there.
No longer? No? Okay, just kidding.
You moved on from what I was going to say.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're good.
Let's go with...
I'm wondering about that issue, the intimacy of the Isys Death scene.
Mm-hmm.
If we think, I'm trying to ask this without book spoilers, if we think that it is a foreshadowing because that relationship, the intimacy of that Rand Issue relationship, is so much more important than we know yet. And
Waffle.
Okay, 1 minute. I know somebody back there. Okay, yeah, red shirt, please. Colin.
This is, I guess, slightly more of a comment than a question, but to me, this episode has a lot more of internal character arc finales than external ones. You talked a little bit about Nynaeve, but we didn't mention that she managed to get to a place at the end of this episode where she was able to put trust in another person, which she's never been able to do before.
Yeah.
And that was actually vital to saving the world.
Yeah.
So I think that that's really important. And with Rand, we talked about Rand killing a Shamel, but to me, the ending of Rand's arc comes a little bit before that, because in the previous episode, he gets a piece of advice from Lan. Lan says there's only one rule to being a man, and that is whatever comes, you take it on your feet. And when Rand is facing down Shamel and he's been shielded, and in the show the shields are clearly a very physical force, he stands up. At the end of the world, he stands up and he says, "No, I will not go to the shadow. I never have." And that is just very Rand to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I sort of see that as an internal character arc more than an external one.
That's a lovely way to look at it. Yeah, people said Nynaeve didn't do anything. Yes, she did. She grew as a person, which I think is really important. Okay, that we are at time. Thank you all so much. Ellie, Connor,